UAO, UAP and UFO activity. Some of these stuff are mainly around unusual maneuverability and past military sightings of different crafts. We haven't seen anything come out yet of any like biological extraterrestrial origins or anything like that. But supposedly some of that stuff is going to come out, and we don't know what we're to expect. These releases are from a directive from the president that's calling for transparency. A lot of members of Congress are calling for transparency, and so I'm excited, but I'm not overly optimistic because of the fact that they're redacting stuff, and they seem to always come out with these things and say we're going to release a batch. And for me, as an American, I believe our government has a right to restrict some things when it comes to national security. But other things, when you start redacting things and sending them out in batches, I always just feel like we're getting played. And so right now, I'm kind of not happy to see that this has come out in the first batch. So Tim, I want to start with that. Like when it comes to the government releasing stuff on UFO, UAPs, why has so much of it been redacted? Why is it such a big secret in your opinion? And why? I'm asking multiple questions. Why does it come out in batches?
This is the biggest secret that our government is keeping. The information, the reality revolving around the alien presence, because that's what it is. It's an alien presence. And we're so deep into this thing. We're decades deep into this thing. And you have to understand there's a factional war taking place inside of the government. You know, when we say the government, we're invoking something very broad and it's somewhat amorphous here. But you have the secrecy faction, and then you have the disclosure faction. The secrecy faction, they want to keep the lid on everything. They don't want they don't believe that the American public should know any of this. You know, some of those guys cite national security concerns and a competitive advantage, strategic advantage over our adversaries, China, Russia. By the way, China and Russia have their own legacy program, their own reverse engineering programs. So this is an arms race. It has been an arms race. I think the United States of America is way ahead of our counterparts, and so you have that secrecy group. They're not interested at all in disclosure, but then you got the disclosure group. And by the way, these individuals in both of these groups are placed variously in different departments within the United States government, different branches of the military. Some of these guys are at the Pentagon, various aspects of the IC community. You know, so it's just these guys are sprinkled throughout on both sides of this equation. They're sprinkled throughout the government entity. You've probably got secrecy guys and disclosure guys at the White House. And the disclosure faction wants limited disclosure. And I've interacted with a lot of those guys. They want limited disclosure. And what they mean by limited disclosure is they want the American people to know, pun intended, the nuts and bolts reality of the phenomenon. And that would mean the ontological reality that we, in fact, are being visited, have been visited by non-human intelligences, that we've recovered their craft and their bodies.
The biological.
Biological. And they feel like the American people have the right to know that. And furthermore, the disclosure group, including some of the Congressman Eric Burleson, who you know, and Tim Burchett, Anna Paulina Luna, and then a lot of the whistleblowers like Lou Elizondo and David Grush and others, they want congressional oversight because these special access programs have been intentionally designed to circumvent congressional oversight, and to circumvent not only, and congressional oversight, that means us, that means the people, the knowledge and control of the people, or that's what it's supposed to mean, right, as originally designed. And so limited disclosure, congressional oversight, that's what the disclosure group wants, right? I'm in that camp. I think that people have the right to know, limited in the sense that we want to make sure that we protect our secrets that pertain to national security and to keep our strategic advantage over our enemies.
I'm right there with you. I agree.
Yeah,
I
think it would be irresponsible just to tell every secret we have and then give up our strategic advantage over the Chi-Coms, for example. This is what's happening. There's not one government narrative. There is an official narrative that's come out of the Pentagon. That narrative has been articulated by the Pentagon's Office for the Study of Anomalous Phenomenon, AARO. And so the official Pentagon narrative is nothing to see here. That's the official Pentagon narrative. I know that for a fact because AARO has been involved in briefings behind the scenes with congressmen, trying to dissuade them, really trying to kind of put out this fire so that trying to quell further inquiry at the congressional level, right? Nothing to see here. Here's 6 videos. Here we debunked each one of these. You know, this is a balloon, this is whatever. So they're just, the AARO's been engaged in just debunking the layups, right? The easy stuff. But they've never debunked the hard stuff, like the Tic Tac, stuff like that. So that's the situation. It's a factional war. Now let's address this situation. Okay, this is a little different. It falls within that factional war, but it's also different in the sense that what we're seeing now, the release of these UAP files, this is the direct result of the directive from the President of the United States, from Donald Trump. And this is Donald Trump and Pete Hegseth. That's what this is. Now, I don't believe, and I've talked to people, insiders, who are of the same opinion, let's put it that way. I don't believe that the President of the United States or the Secretary of War have been read into the program. I don't believe either of them have been read in. And what do I mean read in? I mean
our legacy program, right?
Yeah, the legacy program and the specifics regarding the alien presence. I think that they've been given a general idea, like a very basic understanding that, yeah, hey, there is some anomalous stuff out here. We don't know what it is. But beyond that, I do not believe they've been read in. And that's an informed opinion. Maybe they're being read in now. So what are we looking at? Well, we're looking at the President and, again, the Secretary of War, who are doing their best with the limited knowledge and access that they have to inform the American people of this anomalous, of these anomalous phenomena, right? That's what they're doing. Now, are they holding some stuff back? Yes, they're going to hold back a lot of classified material that's attached to national security concerns, right? That they're going to hold that stuff back. And this is a strategic play by President Trump. You know, people are saying he's doing this to distract from the Epstein files. He's doing this to distract from the Iran war, so on and so forth. I don't think so. I think it's much simpler than that. This is probably more about the midterms than anything, in my opinion. Trump made a promise, I'm going to release the files, and he's keeping the promise. It was an easy deliverable. That's right. People were asking him to release these files. It was an easy deliverable by the Trump administration, and I applaud him for it. Even if it's just a political maneuver, I think Trump is doing this in good faith, as is and Pete Hegseth and everyone involved, Kash Patel. I don't think it's a psyop. Now, what should our expectations be? Well, I've talked to, for example, Eric Burleson, and what these guys are saying, Burleson and Burchett and Luna, have all been out there commenting about this. And what they're saying is that we should expect initially some of the more underwhelming material to be released first, but as we progress along this path, we're going to see more spectacular videos that are, you know, Burchett was on social media today saying that are going to be quite shocking.
Why do you think we released that in batches? Why don't we?
Because it's just strategic. So number one, they're still looking for stuff, right? I mean, there's still the FBI's looking through files. Certainly the FBI and certainly the Department of War are looking through their files. That takes a long time. And they've got to find the relevant files, and then they've got to redact the files, and then they've got to separate out the national security concerns, and make sure those ones don't get published. That takes time.
Yeah, we're not going to release, right?
But also, it's let's keep the midterms in mind, right? Also, by doing a staggered release, it keeps this in front of the American people continually into the summer, which is I think, strategically brilliant on Trump's part. And I'm not sure Trump is the one in charge of how this stuff is going to be released, you know, the exact procedure. But also it allows the American people to sort of assimilate the data as it comes out. And Trump released a statement today on Truth Social, and to paraphrase what he said, he's just going to put this stuff out there, and he's going to allow the American people to evaluate it and try and figure out, in his words, what the hell is going on, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that's Trump's position. He doesn't know what the hell is going on. I think that's honestly his position. And there's this assumption that he knows the totality of of this phenomenon, and he's keeping it from the American people, and he's just giving us little crumbs. That's not true. I think, you know, from what I've heard, this is a good faith effort, and they're looking for what they have access to. Now that sounds crazy, right? What the President of the United States and what the Secretary of War have access to. But as you know, Chad, you know, just because you're the President or the Secretary of War doesn't mean that you're going to be read into these programs, or even you don't have the need to know, number one, and you don't have access to the legacy program. Presidents don't have access to the legacy program. They don't. You know, presidents and secretaries of war and other cabinet positions and positions in the government, they're transitory. They come and go. But the generals and the intelligence community people working at the Department of Energy, certain generals and admirals that are highly placed in the Air Force and in the Navy, you know, those are the guys that stay in their positions long term. Career backgrounds. I mean, you've got everything from and all over the world, by the way, on every continent. You know, you've got people, high-powered lawyers and politicians and all kinds of people from different walks of life who are abductees. So you asked me how I feel so confident. That is, the abduction phenomenon is what puts me over on this topic. You know, you ask me, what's the percentage? 100%. Gray aliens exist. And then that plus other things, right? I mean, I've talked to people who've come to me who've been on site at a crash retrieval. I think you have as well. People who've been on site at crash retrieval and have not only, you know, been involved in the operation, but have seen the bodies. And one particular gentleman told me there were little gray people with big heads and black eyes, right? And they were dead. And they were dismembered, body parts lying all over the place. You know, so the people say, well, that's all anecdotal evidence. Well, at some point, you have such a mountain of anecdotal evidence that the only rational conclusion is that this is true. This has got to be true, right? I mean, at some point, the anecdotal evidence just is evidence.
I've personally heard enough eyewitness testimony to where, you know, I'm right there with you in this. Undoubtedly, where I can point the finger at too, and I'd love to hear yours, is origin. Other people will say that, hey, these are spiritual. We hear one group that says these are spiritual, these are demons, and others say these are physical, biological extraterrestrials that came from a distant galaxy, and other people say this is interdimensional. I don't think it's either or. I think there could be an and in there in these things. Where would you say the origin of the majority of what we're seeing?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I have no idea what gray aliens are, insectalians, or any of that. I don't know where they come from. I know that they lie. I know that what they're doing is nefarious. Their program is clandestine. And that's likely not the only faction involved. So this is a very complex topic. And I always tell people, look, whatever background you're coming from, especially if you're a Christian, as I am, embrace the complexity. Don't try and circumvent the nuts and bolts realities of this phenomenon. Number one, because that's what it is. I mean, this is a technological phenomenon. Now, are there aspects? Can you make a connection in some cases to the occult, to spiritualism? Yeah, I think that there are some connections there, but that doesn't mean that the phenomenon is supernatural or primarily a spiritual phenomenon. It's primarily a nuts and bolts technological phenomenon, but there's aspects of, let's call them, there are psychic components to this thing. That's evident when you talk to, as I have, when you talk to individuals who've been employed in an official capacity, by the way, as psionic assets. And what does a psionic asset do? Well, somehow they're able to bring in the phenomenon. In other words, in some cases, they're able to get the craft to land. And guess what comes out in many cases? Gray aliens. And, you know, I mean, I've seen pictures that these guys have taken. And so there's a, if you will, a psychic aspect to this. That doesn't mean that this is a supernatural phenomenon. It means that you're dealing with exceedingly potent telepathic beings. And that's what they are. They're telepathic. All communication is telepathic. And it could be also that these individuals are abductees, because abductees are intrinsically interlaced with the phenomenon, and they're connected with it. And also remember, they're implanted with these little technological devices. So, so I think there's an abductee factor connected with the psionic stuff, but we don't have to get into the weeds there. So I don't know, ontologically speaking, what are these things? I have no idea what they are. And I don't have any problem with components of this phenomenon being extraterrestrial. That doesn't bother me in the slightest. It doesn't matter to me if these beings are interdimensional or if they come from Mars. It doesn't matter. As a Christian, it doesn't affect my faith. It doesn't change the gospel of Christ. I've got no problem with any of these. You know, the one that the one that seems the most far-fetched to me is the time traveling thing.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I would subscribe to the idea that these are us from the future, or these are time travelers. But whatever. I mean, I don't know. Who knows?
I mean, I do want to get into Christian aspect because this is very important to my audience. But before I do, I want to ask one more thing. When you talk about species, we hear a lot about the reptilians, and I've continued to hear more and more about reptilians having the ability to morph into humans, and some of our leadership and around the world and the global leadership would be actually not humans but reptilian beings. What's your take on those thoughts?
I'm doubtful of that narrative. I don't think that
you've heard this, all right?
Yeah. This started with David Icke, years ago, and I don't really subscribe to that. I don't think Hillary Clinton is a reptilian. I think she's an occultist.
I think she's evil. An occultist,
I think she's an occultist, yeah, but I don't think she's a reptilian. That all seems, I'll use the term far-fetched again. That all seems far-fetched to me. Now, I will say that I do believe that we, in an official capacity, we have made contact and have been engaging with non-human intelligence. I think we've made treaties with some of these factions. And
the United States government, the world,
elements of the United States government, elements maybe of the Air Force or Navy or intelligence community, that in some capacity we've actually, we haven't just recovered the craft and the bodies, but we've actually been interacting in a sort of a, I guess you could describe it in geopolitical terms, although, again, I don't know where these beings come from. Are they crypto-terrestrial? Are they just from the earth? Are they under the seas? Is this an ancient antediluvian, advanced civilization from the antediluvian world that's still around? Or are these actually extraterrestrial beings? I don't know. And the only ones who do know are those who are read in. Yeah. And those guys are few and far between, right? The vast majority of us out here talking about, and this includes the congressmen and women, and we are not read in. To be read in means that you are read into the program to such an extent that you understand the questions that nobody can answer, like some of the ontological questions, the questions regarding specifics about the biology of these creatures and the technology that they use, those answers are known. There are answers to those questions, but you have to be read in. Even, David Grush, who was investigating UAP in an official capacity, was not read in. He wasn't allowed to be read into the program. Lou Elizondo was not read in to the program. They figured some things out on their own, at ATIP, and these guys are adjacent to people who've been read in. In other words, they have generals and other IC guys that are informing them and that are giving them some information. But the people who really know, they're out there, but they are far and few between, and we don't know their names. And it's not President Trump, and it's not Secretary Pete Hegseth, and it's not Marco Rubio. It's not any of these guys. Maybe it was. It certainly. I would say it certainly was. What is his name? General McCaskill. What's his name? That general who disappeared recently. Yeah, I think that guy was read in. I think he was read in.
Which might be why he disappeared.
You're exactly right.
Hey, two things I really love about you, Tim, is one is what you just did, where if you don't know something, too often people don't know something and they are looked at as a subject matter expert on topic, so they always have to have an answer. I love that you were okay to say, I don't know. One of the things I loved about Birthright is you talked about what you knew, and when it was time for you to speculate on your beliefs or opinions, you made it known that this was your opinion. I just really appreciate that about you. I think the other thing I love most about you is I know that when it comes to this topic, I could trust what you say, because at your core and at your foundation that you're a Christ follower and you believe in the gospel of Christ. Beyond that, and it doesn't, none of this stuff, all these things you've seen from megalith structures and all the antediluvial, like pre-flood stuff and UFOs, UAPs, none of the things shake your faith, because you are so solid in the gospel of Christ and you lead with that. So I just really trust your opinion on this stuff so much. And as the disclosures were coming out today, I watched some stuff on the internet where pastors are talking about getting these briefings and people were talking about the great deception coming in the book of Revelation and all these things. And Christians are getting scared. And one of the things, reasons I believe that Christians are getting scared is because there's this popular view in Christianity called the anthropocentric view, where people think that man is the center of God's creation and the earth is the center of the universe, and that the Bible, if the Bible doesn't talk about extraterrestrial life, then it can't exist. And that's so dangerous to me, because now when you expose some of these things that are able to be provable, it shatters people's faith in the gospel. I'd really love for the audience, as this comes out, if you could speak to that and bring some of that same peace that you walk with every day.
So you're referring to what I describe as the anthropocentric paradigm, or the anthropocentric perspective of the universe. And the anthropocentric perspective is a medieval view. It's the traditional view, I would say, of Christians, not just evangelical Christians, but I would extend this to the Roman Catholic Church and the Orthodox Church, with some caveats with those two. But in general, the anthropocentric paradigm posits that mankind is at the center of the universe. That the earth and mankind is at the center of the universe. That the universe was made for the earth, and the earth was made for man. We are it. This whole story is revolving around us. All the players in the story, so to speak, they're ancillary to us. We are the primary protagonist in this story, and that is not the biblical, the correct biblical perspective. The biblical perspective, the writers of the New Testament, they articulate what I call a Christocentric paradigm. And from the Christocentric perspective, and I want you to imagine this as a wheel, right? So you have a wagon wheel, one of those big wooden wagon wheels. And at the center of that wheel is the hub. And all those wooden spokes on that wagon wheel are connected to the hub, right? So from the anthropocentric perspective, who's at the center of this wheel? We are, mankind. We're what the universe is about. We're what this story is all about. And all of any other sentient being, angels, whatever, they are spokes that are revolving around that hub. But from the Christocentric perspective, it is not us at the center of that wheel. We are not the hub of the wheel. Rather, Christ is at the center of that wheel. And that wheel represents the universe and everything in it, right? Christ is at the center. He is the hub of the wheel. And we, rather than being the hub, we're a spoke in that wheel. We're a secondary character. We're an ancillary character in his story. This is the story of the Son of God. And this is made plain in the scriptures, in the New Testament. For example, in Colossians, Paul says so elegantly, he says, he, referencing Jesus, the Son of God, he is the image of the invisible God, the firstborn over all creation. For by him all things were created that are in heaven and that are on earth, visible and invisible, whether thrones or dominions or principalities or powers. All things were created through him and for him. And he is before all things, and in him all things consist. That is an articulation of the Christocentric paradigm. Christ is the center of all things. The universe exists for him. It was created through him. It exists for him, and all things consist within him. Okay? That is the biblical view. It's not about us, it's about him. Now, we have a special relationship. We have a special relationship to him because Jesus became one of us. He became a man to redeem mankind, right? And he didn't do that for the angels. He did that for us. So that's a very special relationship that we have for him. And the existence of extraterrestrials doesn't change that theological equation at all. Right. It doesn't change our relationship with Christ. It doesn't alter the gospel of Christ. If we find out that, gray aliens come from Mars, like I said before, that has no bearing on the gospel of Christ. The gospel is true regardless. And if you have an extraterrestrial being that disembarks from a flying saucer, make sure they're grounded in the gospel of Christ, make sure that their roots go deep. And then also just be honest with them about and you need to get educated yourself if you're a pastor, about the nuts and bolts reality of this thing. Don't try and circumvent the reality of the phenomenon. Embrace the complexity. Tell your people whatever this turns out to be, whether it's, again, interdimensional, extraterrestrial, cryptoterrestrial, it doesn't matter. Your faith shouldn't be shaken by any of that. Get ready to defend the truth and to recognize the lie when it comes forward, okay? And I'm going to reiterate, the existence of the beings and their technology is not in itself a lie. It's the messaging that's I think, going to be ultimately attached to this thing that's going to be the lie. So I don't know why everybody's up in arms and so worried about deception. I mean, if you're grounded in the gospel of Christ, you're not going to be deceived, period.
And by the way, I'll add that I just had Pastor Josh McPherson in town. He works directly with the White House's Office of Faith. He is the main coordinator for all the pastors that go in for pastoral briefings. And I asked him this directly yesterday. And he nor anyone I know up at the White House or the Pentagon, and I talk to people regularly, or aware of any briefing, official briefing of pastors.
All right, let's address this alleged pastor's briefing. So this involves, there's two different groups, I think, that are being conflated here. I think you have your prominent faith, your prosperity gospel type pastors like Paula White, who is, in my opinion, unfortunately, the spiritual advisor to Donald Trump. You've got her crew that's close to the president. She has access to the White House. She has access to the president. I think that group may actually have been or is being briefed in an official capacity by somebody in the White House. That's just my speculation, okay? That's just speculation. Just based on some things that Paula White has said that demonstrate to me that she's going through some ontological shock right now. So I suspect that somebody is officially briefing her and her group. Now, I don't think they're being briefed on anything classified. I don't think they're being, shown any like pictures of dead gray aliens or anything like that. I think they're just being told, hey, this is real. This is a nuts and bolts reality. The craft exists. We probably have some of these things in our possession. Just the baseline disclosure, right? Again, that's my suspicion. Now, this other situation involving these 6 pastors, not all of them are pastors, but we'll just describe them as pastors. This briefing that happened in Tennessee. This is the one that's going viral on the internet. I only know a couple of guys involved in that, but I know personally the briefers, and I've been briefed extensively by these guys, and I probably should put the word brief in quotations because the vast majority of what these guys share is open source. It's public domain. And what I can say about these guys, I was just on the phone with them yesterday and the day before. I've spent, as I said, I've spent a lot of time with these guys, and I think they're good guys. And some of these guys are retired SF guys. They're retired special forces operators. They are not associated with the government outside of, doing some special force stuff. Some of them still do some stuff, but it's not related to UAP stuff. So these guys are not official representatives of the government. They're not IC guys. They're not intelligence community guys. They're not Pentagon guys. And by the way, they wanted me to clarify this whenever I have the opportunity to talk about it. These guys are members of a private UAP investigative group. They do investigations into the UAP topic, but also, and I would say probably primarily, into human trafficking. Topics related to human trafficking. And they're doing great work on that front. And that's why they want to remain completely anonymous, right? Because they want to be effective. And that's why I'm going to respect their desire for anonymity. This has been represented. This thing has just been hyped through the roof. There's a lot of hyperbolic language and posturing, and it's been sensationalized, and like there's this super secret government briefing in which these pastors were given like some kind of classified information. No, that's not true. The briefers, their objective is they want to reach out to as many pastors and Christian leaders as they can, and they want them to be aware of the reality and the gravity of what I would describe as the alien presence, right? The UAP phenomenon. But also, in addition to that, the trafficking, what's happening in the trafficking of children, and that arena as well, right? That's one of their major concerns, is the trafficking stuff. So again, I applaud these guys. I'm for them. I'm with them. But they're not, like briefing pastors on classified UAP stuff. And they're not government officials. They're a private group, and that's the reality. That's the reality. And for whatever reason, this story has just exploded and it's grown into a mythology. And I can tell you that these guys are. And that arena as well, right? That's one of their major concerns, is the trafficking stuff. So again, I applaud these guys. I'm for them. I'm with them. But they're not, like briefing pastors on classified UAP stuff. And they're not government officials. They're a private group, and that's the reality. That's the reality. And for whatever reason, this story has just exploded and it's grown into a mythology. And I can tell you that these guys are frustrated. They told me. They're frustrated at how this thing has been represented and how it's been inflated and conflated. And also, I talked to Rep Eric Burleson as well, and his words were taken out of context. And I think that pastor who did that retracted those. So good on him. But so there's this, you know, unfortunately, this thing has just, as I said, it's grown into this crazy conspiracy. It's not MJ-12. It's not the Collins elite. It's not government officials, private, retired special forces guys, good guys doing good work, trying to get Christians to understand the reality of the phenomenon. And they have some, you know, these guys have their own opinions. They have their own theological opinions. They're Christians, by the way. Not the entire organization. The entire organization, you know, it's got a lot of different people from different backgrounds that are associated with it. But within that, and the vast majority of them are not Christians, but within this larger group, there's a group of guys that are Christians. And so these guys are independently reaching out to people like myself and pastors and Christians who are in an influential position for the reasons previously articulated.
Yeah. Matt, well, you know, this is like a special for the Resilient Show, and every time I get to talk with anyone, including you and on previous episode, one always built to just communicate to the audience how to be resilient in hard times. And getting information like this it can be hard for some people, but I believe that knowledge and being informed and being prepared and makes you resilient. To understand that the biblical perspective of this, to me, gives me just tremendous peace. To understand that we don't lose our what exists beyond mankind.
Yeah.
And that pastors and faith leaders and even fellow Christians, to, you know, amongst each other, we should be able to talk about these things without feeling like we're somehow compromising our faith or being
That's right.
a sellout or a crazy person for talking about these things, because these things are going to continue to be presented to us, and some of these things you and I both know and believe are real, and because they're real, they should never have the ability to change our core beliefs as Christians.
And I think it's important for Christians, especially Christian leaders, to show some humility. I mean, we don't know all of the details. We don't know. You can't say that you know for a fact as a Christian that there's nothing else out there in the universe. There's only angels, demons, Nephilim, and humans, or some such taxonomy. We don't know that. There's nothing in the scriptures that would indicate that. Nothing at all. In fact, I argue the opposite. I mean, let's just look at the earth itself. There's a vast effusion of diverse life, millions of species on the earth, right? This is the fingerprint of the Maker. The earth, what we can see, is the fingerprint of the Maker. So to think that he hasn't created other things, other life forms outside of the earth,
in the universe,
in the universe, right? Try to constrain his creative impulse is the height of hubris, in my opinion. I think we need to show humility, and it's okay to say, Pastor, it's okay to say, you know, I don't know what this is. I don't know if there's extraterrestrials. I don't know. I don't have the answer. Let's be on our guard against demonic deception, definitely, right? But I don't know. That's the correct answer. Anything beyond that, I think, is a display of hubris. It doesn't help anybody. It doesn't prepare anybody.
It's actually dangerous, in my opinion.
It makes Christians look ignorant and haughty, and I would advise against it. So, you know, and ultimately, I don't know these guys. I only know a couple of them. These 6 pastors. I'm sure they're great guys. I'm sure they have great intentions. But going out public facing and grabbing your bullhorn and saying, we were brought into this super secret meeting and, you know, no cell phones and everything, and we were told, you know, this information, and then construing it in a particular way and presenting it as if they were briefed that, you know, aliens or demons or something like that. That's not helpful. It's not wise. No. And I think we need to be more constrained. I think we need to be cautious and wise and humble. as Christians approaching this topic, willing to consider different perspectives while remaining steadfast in the gospel and defending the truth. That should be our position as Christians. And I think that the world, this secular world, would respect that. And in fact, would invite us to the table in the conversation, right? If that's our attitude. Now, we're going to defend, we are going to vociferously defend the gospel of Christ and so forth. But let's not pretend like because we're Christians and because we have a Bible, we have all the answers to this phenomena. No, there are concealed things that God conceals, and there are secret things. And let's let the secrets be the secrets. We don't have all the information. What has been revealed to us, that's what we have, and that's what we're going to hold fast to.
Awesome, Tim. Man, I don't know if we missed anything. If we did, feel free to jump in. But for those listening, Tim's going to be on probably a lot of different media today, and we're very thankful to have him. So thanks for your time. Go back and watch Tim's 2 episodes on The Resilience Show. They're absolutely incredible. And definitely buy his book, Birthright. Again, one of my favorite books that I've read this year, probably in a long time. And to the point to where, I listened to it in audio, and I got in and read it. Read it and just